When the socialism appeared and social democrats and so on, they immediately saw that the main source of inequalities in society is the family. So from the beginning, no, so much sooner than Wilhelm Reich really, but it was very late actually, but already in the 1870s and so on, then already the family was attacked. And you see that very clear in the encyclics of the popes that already at that time needed to write encyclicals about the family. That only Leo XIII wrote 3, and at that time already began the attack on the family. So it is actually, but obviously radicalized hugely with the Bolshevist revolution. Wilhelm Reich was obviously particularly radical, and they still thought in very theoretical categories, and they were not practical at all. I mean, so they said, okay, if we want to establish communism, we need to destroy family. So because the idea of the communist society is a completely massificated society. It's a society constructed on the basis of individuals and not on the basis of family. And in order to destroy a family, you must introduce a sexual revolution. That means that you have no sexual morality, yeah, and the best thing to do is that comes from Wilhelm Reich. It is necessary to sexualize as soon as possible the youth. No, if you sexualize them with pornography and everything else, then they become unable to build a family, to found a family, and that's basically what we are seeing right now in the West. I mean, all this pornography and all this free love and all this sexual revolution that is very strong, or was very strong there, is making basically people unable to build up families. Because if you don't have any morals, I mean, why people should undergo all the sacrifices of building up a family? But that, for him, it was a conditio sine qua non. Without destruction, without sexualization of a society, without sexualization of the youth, you don't destroy the family, and if you don't destroy the family, you don't have communism. It was very clear. The problem is that afterwards they saw that was so destructive for the communism, that and they were in such a competence with the capitalist world, you know, with the United States and whatever, that they saw, okay, if we are destroying so quick, we are destroying ourselves, that they couldn't go as quick as they wanted to go. But for the first theoreticians, like Wilhelm Reich, it was very clear that you don't have communism without destruction of the family, and you don't have destruction of the family without a sexual revolution. Reich worked above all in the Soviet Union. After the World War, in the 50s was it was a relatively, you didn't see all this decadence so strongly as you saw later on the 60s and 70s, obviously, but the war had the impact that it created a liberal mood in the society. So what happened in reality is in the West is that this whole process was very slow. So in the 60s came these people that were also Marxists, no, in the so-called Frankfurt school, Frankfurter Schule, no, Marcuse and all these people, that they were Marxists. I mean, so they knew what the Marxists said before about the family and a sexual revolution in order to create a social revolution, because for them it was very clear. We want to have a social revolution. And so they began to develop all these ideas and to spread them and so on. And there, in the 60s, appeared a very strong movement against the society that was built up in the 50s. All the 60s was a big mood of revolt, and the climax of this was the 68 revolution. So, and they really were, the left, yeah, was very successful, saying, okay, we need to really overcome all these bourgeois structures. One of them was also the family. Yeah? So they were Marxist, although they were living in the Western world. And this was done at the universities, and you see how the imposition was from the state was that a very practical application of this was in the sexual education programs introduced at the beginning of the 70s. And it's very interesting to read them, these books, because at the beginning they were very open and they told very explicitly what they wanted to. And they, again, they spoke almost in the same language from the liberal life. They say, we want to have a new man, we want to have a new society. So, and we want to destroy the monopoly of the family on the children and so on. So the people should have more. So and why? Because they were really Marxists. So the Marxist model of society was also very strong in many intellectuals in the West. But they couldn't do it as fast as, let's say, Wilhelm Reich would have liked to do it, but it was much more slowly. But on the opposite, it was very deep, because it was with a massive intervention, massive help from the state. No, you must think that all these governments at the end of the 60s and beginning of the 70s, and all the West were very leftist, really. No, so they were openly. They had open friendship also with the communist states behind the Iron Curtain. So the people tend to forget. So there is a perception that you had the West and you had the East, and they were completely enemies. And that was not the case. And especially it was not the case with the elite, with intellectual elites in the universities. I mean, the 68s were in favor of Ho Chi Minh. They chanted, Ho Chi Minh, all that. I mean, so, and all the students, they were extreme left. I mean, they had no problem at all. And so there was in the left, even in the moderates left, there was this Ostpolitik to establish a modus vivendi with the communists and Mitterrand. So they were not as liberal as people think today they were. Okay, they had the massive, in order to do the sexual revolution, they have the massive intervention from the state, especially in the programs of sexual education, but also of the media. The media, that is, especially in Western Europe, has a strong ideological interest. They promoted in each way the dissolution of a family, the dissolution of the sexual morality and so on. And this begins much sooner as the 60s, but this begins already in the 50s. Yeah, well, I mean, in the West, the core year for all this is 1968, but the 1968 revolution was really an explosion of something that but for example, it comes from a long time. I mean, for even the Nazis, yeah, they were not, they were also catastrophic in terms of sexual morality, and also in the 30s, in the 20s, in the 30s, at least in the big cities like Berlin and so on, was a very extremely liberal time. Yeah, so the number of abortions and that was huge, really. So this comes really from a long time. So after First World War, really, there began a very fast decadence of the Christian values of society. And the explosion of all this was 68, where they could achieve that this became mainstream. Until then, no, people could not live, for example, together if they were not married. So it was still very bad, or at least very strange that a child is born outside of marriage. And so if you see the statistics, all the statistics become extremely bad after 68. So 68 was really a turning point, because that what before was customs, was tendency, was somehow in the minds of the people. The 68 revolution turned this something formal. So it is from now on possible to live without outside marriage and so on. So this created, if you want to see, where this became mainstream, and this became more and more bad. For example, in this formalization, conquering the mainstream, the middle of the society, this is becoming more and more standard. And now it's the homosexual marriage. To make abortion, everything came in the 70s. It was legalized in the 70s to perform abortions and so on. So together with this, the Christian position that was still the norm, the mainstream, before 68, after 68, less and less is the social norm. So today, it's much more difficult to defend the life of the unborn child than to be in favor of abortion. So you feel as in a defensive position. It is much more difficult today to say, no, people can live together only after marriage, than the opposite. So you need to be explaining why after marriage is necessary to it, because after marriage you can live together. You need to explain, you are in the defensive position. You need to explain your ideology, let's say, or your values, and not the other. So there you see a big change. So the other side, the people that before 68 were, let's say, in a minority or were on the defensive, now they create the norms that rule society. But these norms are not norms, are really is simply a destruction of society and of the Christian values that should be the values that form and build up society. All these tendencies, also these developments we have since decades, basically are destroying the Christian roots of the Western societies. And this creates a vacuum, because people, the man needs to have goals, needs to have ideals, and needs to know why he is on earth. So when all these things are being destroyed, and Christianity and the influence of the Catholic Church is diminishing and is put completely besides, this simply creates in the minds of the people a vacuum. So, and then they become very open to this tendency like witchcraft and occultism and so on, where they basically where they search for that they don't find elsewhere. No, so because what happens in the social level through the sexual revolution, let's say that the moral standards are being destroyed. This has also a spiritual dimension. So people with that become more and more interested also for occultism and Satanism and all that kind of things. And also the same happens also with the standards, with the cultural standards, like the sense of beauty and so on. So so people what people really are doing, what the society is doing, they are repulsing Christianity in order to accept other things. Yeah, and what comes is really the opposite of that. Yeah, and this is we have very often people have the idea, okay, the Christianity is in opposition with rationality, with rationalism in the age of light and all that, but it's not true. I mean, even at that time, no, during the Aufklärung, as it's said in German, the age of reason, the witchcraft and occultism was huge, because people don't find a sense of life in the books of philosophers like Rousseau or Kant. The people go simply to that kind of things, and this is basically what we are seeing now. So this is when the churches get empty and the people don't go more to the confessionary, they go either to the occultism, to the witches, or to the psychotherapists. No, because they need some spiritual assistance. Yeah, and the same happens really obviously in the dimension of aesthetics. So people get more and more accustomed to things that are ugly, and for example, if you see the comics, many of these comics or of these new things is simply the deification of the brutal force. No, and the brutal force was actually the main aspects of all the pagan religions. Yeah, this is basically the other side of the same coin of the sexual revolution. So if people, so in the same way they opened for homosexual marriage and things like that, they opened for all these other things. The idea of this new man is an old idea from all this leftist, all these anti-Christian people. No, that is real. That. Because the only ideology, to put it like that, that is in accordance to the human nature is the magisterium of the Catholic Church. No? The left is always dreamt of, because they like these utopias. No? They like to say, okay, how should be a perfect society? How should be an ideal man? Well, so they like that. I mean, that is not the way of thinking of conservative people, and certainly not of Catholic people, that look which is the nature of man and how I can help these people in order that they live according to the nature, that in their nature is towards God. And so but on reality, what they do in order to create this new man is simply destroy Christianity. No? In destroying Christianity, basically they open for the things that are against Christianity. So all this ugliness and occultism and so on. So this new man it is true that it is a task, it's the ideal of the leftists, but it's not what they are achieving. What they are really doing is simply a destruction process. The revolutionary process is in reality a destruction. It's a destruction of something positive that is the Christian civilization. And this has also a theological explanation, that after the incarnation of the verb, after Christ, everything either is in favor of Christ or against him. There are no other ways. No? So either the civilization or everything is done in accordance to the spirit of Christ or against him. No? There is no alternative. What they present is, we want to have something of our own, but that's not possible. So that would be the theological explanation of the same thing. So. And it's really what our Lord said in the Evangelials. If you are not with me, you are against me. So there are no other possibilities. So the people that are against him, what they are not really building something different. They are building something that is anti-Christian, and therefore they want the ugliness, the occultism, the witchcraft, and so on.